Now the apostles are dead, one might say. So what now then? Well, the apostles handed on their authority. We have the election of a replacement for Judas, Matthias. We have, in St. Paul's letters to Timothy and Titus, the handing on, by laying on of hands, the authority to teach and preach, to rule, to govern the local church. So there's clearly a model here. And we see in the early Christian writings, that's the view. There's apostolic continuation of authority. Of course, nobody's an apostle. A bishop is not an apostle. But it's the apostolic authority. That's the succession. Then the question is, where do we go to get that, to be under that authority? Is it any old person who calls himself a pastor or a minister? There's a Protestant guy over there, and is he authoritative? No, because whoever made him what he is, if he didn't just make himself a kind of leader within his group, they come from man-made organisations. You have to trace yourself back to the apostles to have real authority in Christianity, and only the Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox can do this. So that's really where one's got to focus. And when one focuses there and then focuses down more onto the Catholics, it's because Jesus says in Matthew 16 to Peter, only to Peter, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And when you bind on earth, it'll be bound in heaven. And when you loose on earth, it'll be loosed in heaven. Now the power of binding and loosing was given to the apostles collectively, but not without Peter, all of them together in Matthew 18. But in Matthew 16, Peter can exercise that power alone, not as part of the 12. The 12 get it as a collective, and they can only exercise it as a collective themselves. But Peter can exercise it on his own, because Jesus says to him directly, on his own. And of course, as I said, only Peter gets the keys. And that goes back to Isaiah 22 verse 22, I think, where Eliakim becomes the prime minister, or the grand vizier, or the chief steward, or whatever they were in the Oriental world. That authority, the king's minister, king's chief minister, that's the old Israel. King David, then his chief minister. In the new Israel, which is the Catholic Church alone, the Catholic Church, the king is Christ, and the chief minister is Peter, and his successors down the centuries. And that's why we're Catholics and not even Eastern Orthodox or Oriental Orthodox, because they deny the absolute authority of Peter, bearer of the keys. They say he's like at best, the first amongst equals. Well, that would say he's an equal. Even though he's the first amongst equals, he's an equal. Well, that isn't the case, because Jesus did not give the keys to all 12. He gave them just to Peter. Therefore, we say that the Eastern Orthodox and the Oriental, well, the Eastern Orthodox particularly, should follow what they did for the first 1,000 years of Christianity, more willing to accept the authority of the papacy. And in fact, they accept that when it comes to disputes which cannot be resolved in the local metropolitan areas, at the level of the local metropolitans, like Antioch, Jerusalem, Constantinople, then they can be referred to Rome to determine the case. So they still say that. But why? What's special about Rome? They're trying to almost have their cake and eat it, and say, well, we don't want to accept the Pope's authority over us, but we want to accept that he's got jurisdiction when it comes to ultimate disputes, like in the English Supreme Court, or a Court of Appeal below that. And this is why we're Catholics. It all fits together logically. It's completely incoherent in Protestantism, and it's kind of not quite fully coherent in the Orthodox religions.